Jenna Ortega has recently bemoaned some very intense filming schedules she faced while doing her role as Wednesday.
She definitely
for
called
Netflix.
the ambulance. She definitely called the ambulance.
Yeah, and a lot of people are now saying that Netflix abuses their workers, their performers, because of what she said. So here's what she revealed to us. It was to show up to set 2 hours early, do a 12 to 14 hour day, then go home, get on a Zoom and have whatever lesson I had, or show up to my apartment. My cello teacher was already waiting for me. It was just constantly going. And if you could on a weekend, if we weren't shooting the 6th day in the week, it was all right, well then we'll get your lesson in on that day. So it sounds like she insisted on learning cello to play Wednesday, who plays the cello, instead of
she insisted
opting
was it in
for
her contract.
Yeah. So like she takes a lot of pride in like doing her own stunts. I've seen her brag about that. That's cool. It's cool that she's as dedicated as she is. But here is how she continued this statement. She said, I did not get any sleep. I pulled my hair out. There's so many FaceTime calls that my dad answered of me hysterically crying.
Important that we have dads in the household, ladies and gentlemen. Just saying, where would she be if she didn't have her dad to answer those important FaceTime calls?
And a testament to their relationship, right? Like when she needed someone to help her.
Dad was there.
She also said that Tim Burton was very encouraging to her. Yeah, but she talked about like how difficult it was to manage learning cello for this role. And I was wondering, like, I mean, I'm sure you could have opted to have a stunt double do it for you, or she admitted that at times they had cello doubles. And if you think about it, it's pretty cool that they were this dedicated to making the show like detail oriented. And
my favorite thing
especially if
her
character's going to continue to play cello. You know what I mean? Like she might as well pick it up.
And she had to learn a song that was actually meant for 2 people to play at the same time, not one.
I do love watching old movies when they're very clearly not playing the song on the guitar or like
you're seeing them hold a guitar, but like you can't see them holding any notes.
It's
or like the piano that's just
they
shoulder
film it
and
from
above.
the front. Yeah, they film it from the front so you can't see their hands moving.
Yeah.
Like the piano is the easiest of them to fake.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think it's easy to write this off as she's, you know, an actress who's complaining about her life and whatever else. Like, I do think this must be the kind of schedule where you're
in charge.
Right, and you hear about like ER nurses, right, who will work 12-hour shifts several times in a row and then they're off for a couple days but they're exhausted. This is, I think, probably similar. Like when you're filming, you're on completely. Maybe you get some rest time later. And I'm very pro sleep. I think it's really important that everyone get enough sleep. Being chronically tired and being chronically short of sleep really messes with your well-being. It can mess with your gut health. It can mess with your emotions. And so she's how old? She's like a teenager, early 20s.
She's
20.
Right. This is, I mean, if you told me that she was in college and she had all these classes and all these reports and she called her dad feeling overwhelmed and tired, like it would be the same thing. College students are notorious for for not sleeping. I don't think it's abusive. Like I don't think Netflix is necessarily doing anything wrong. It's just that the lifestyle and the production schedule is intense, and unfortunately I'm sure it is exhausting.
A lot of the responses to this are like, I'm sure my life is way harder than Jenna Ortega's life and I don't get to complain about it.
Yes, you do.
On the internet. But you're literally doing that as you comment. So this one person said, imagine if Jenna Ortega had a real job. I remember painting houses for $20 a day, 12-hour workday, then travel time back, get everything ready for the next day. And he also said he worked on many shows and movies and he knows like how much work is involved in that and like the time the actors dedicate to it. So he thinks that the vast majority of actors don't have a real job because they're just on downtime while the crew works.
I think that's a fair comment to be made, that everybody's life experience is different, and she's not claiming that her suffering is any worse than any other.
Yeah, that's what bothers me. If her saying like this was a crazy demanding schedule and I was exhausted by the end of it, and they're like, well then you should get in the coal mines and work. Like simmer down, team.
Yeah, it's
she's
not the
saying
same thing.
your life is bad, and it's not like she's not even saying
you have a right to complain about your own struggles.
Right, and she's not even saying like I would never do this job, it's too hard. Like then you might make fun of her a little bit, right? But she's just saying this was a demanding schedule and was exhausting. That seems totally reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Well, some people think that this reveals something specifically about Gen Z.
They just don't want to work.
Yeah, like people not wanting to work anymore, specifically Gen Z, and you see all these videos of them from their Starbucks job, crying about all the mobile orders. And like,
the guy,
I-
the it that was.
but like, I understand why working at least, even if it's not hard work, feels meaningless these days and tires you out more spiritually.
Well, and I think probably it's easier for her to go into this job and agree to learn the cello and agree to work really hard, and even if it's exhausting, push through it because she's passionate about the project, right? If I worked 70 hours a week at a Starbucks and I didn't like it there,
Yeah.
I would be miserable too.
Yeah.
I would not enjoy it. Like, working really hard when you're fulfilled by something is a very different experience. It's
Very
not that
different.
it's less exhausting. It's not that you are not taking a toll on your body and your psyche and everything else. It's just that at the end you feel like it's worth it because you're proud of what you're accomplishing. I think there are Gen Z, I mean, just like any generation, there are people who are unhappy in their career choice, but also aren't willing to push themselves to pursue something they're more passionate about, or willing to accept that like their job is boring, but they also don't have as much stress as other people.
That it's like before this job, my jobs were always not, like not soul sucking, but like it was just a job. And at the end of the day, it was the end of the day.
And
This
maybe
job
that's good.
I work way more, but it's far more fulfilling and is something that I actually care about. Whereas another job, once you clock out, you're done caring for the day. You don't have to worry about it. That's not really the case here. So it's a trade-off.
It seems like a lot of people Gen X and above have espoused the view that having a meaningless job or one that doesn't have an outcome you care about is fulfilling in and of itself because it like builds character.
And
I would say that if you have a meaningless job that you're not super emotionally tied to, it can be nice because your identity is not your professional work.
Yeah.
And I
Also-
think that
yeah.
can be positive. I think people overlook that, right? Like, if you have a job that pays the bill, but your passions are outside.
Yeah.
So you go to your job, you do your job, it's cool. Why are you pointing at me?
there was a stink bug on your.
Oh,
did
I'm
you get
sorry.
it?
Feeling threatened over
I
here.
think you got it.
If you have a job that pays the bills and you're like, it's fine. Yeah, I have that one coworker I don't like, but it's not who I am. It's not what I'm
Yeah.
passionate about. Cool, that's good. I think too much of Americans put their identity in what their professional career is, and they forget to see that life is about so much more than your job title.
And for them, it was about having a job that paid the bills in a 401k so they could go home to their families. So it was only part of who they were. Like, you've seen Office Space, right? Where it's like,
I love Office
like
Space.
that's kind of what it was right there. Like, people forgot that back then, like, you could have a soul-sucking job, and a lot of people got kind of sidetracked by the fact that they weren't fulfilled by their
Yeah.
work. Well, not taking for granted the fact that it afforded them a great deal of stability.
Yeah, I know a bunch of blue collar guys who do real estate stuff, you know, electricians, carpenters, and they'll book jobs that they'll work on, 3 or 4 months, but they'll schedule themselves so they can take all of deer season off
Yeah.
to go hunting. And in some ways that's good. They provide food for their family, things like that. But like, they have chosen a career where maybe in a different life they would have done something else, but they like it. They're good at what they do, and they get to schedule their lives so they pursue
Or they
what
don't
they're
work
really
in the
interested
winters.
in. Yeah, whatever it is. Like,
yeah.
there are different ways to handle this. I think with this story, it is a reality that if you really want something, you have to work for it. And especially when you're starting out, you have to put a ton of time and effort into it. But I don't think she is therefore exempt from being able to say, and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Of course you were.
I do think there's a problem in our culture where, like, we get stuck with like the Gary V's of the world who give you the platitudes on
Hustle.
how
Hustle no
But
matter
like,
what.
there is the idea that when people get home from work, they just go watch something on Netflix, or they go sit around and they don't actually do something that they care about because the work has tired them out and they just don't have the desire to do so. And I get that. Like, I get that. When you're done with work, you just want to be done with work. But a lot of people that I know that have successful things that they do on the side, whether, like, I have a friend, he's a teacher, full-time teacher, he teaches English at a high school, and he has 2 YouTube channels, one of which is very successful, one of which that he cares more about but is smaller because it's related to skating, but the other one is very successful. I don't know where the hell he finds the time to make he does it all
Like
himself.
doing that and grading papers.
And grading papers. He's like, sometimes it's like on Sundays, he's like, I go and he's like working on videos as he's grading papers. I'm like, do you ever like type in the grades?
Well,
on
some
the
people
thumbnail?
have, their day job and a side hustle and another side hustle
Yeah.
and a hobby, and they actually are very harmonious like that.
They
and
love it.
Maybe they're a little crazy.
They're
but
the
that's
women
fine.
of men.
I think maybe the reason that celebrities are so hypersensitive that they end up snapping at the audience and blaming the audience for their feelings about their projects is because they're the type of people who are way emotionally invested in their work.
And their work is their face, right? It is very different when you're being attacked for a project that is actually you, right? If you
I feel that way about this sometimes. I do. Like I know that that's not like what you should say. It never bothers you, but it's like as somebody who doesn't really, if I'm being honest, like when I'm done with work, if somebody asks me an opinion on something, I go, I don't care. Like most of the time, I don't care. So when your job is to care and to share opinions. And people are there to then judge you on them, where not in a productive manner, meaning like you don't get to have a conversation about what that opinion is, but somebody gets to make a comment about it as they dissect it, oftentimes in the most uncharitable of manners, right? Like, I'm not a huge fan of that aspect of it. So I do understand where the shortness comes from. I don't think it's right, and you should never be rude to people for no reason, and I don't do that. But
like,
I get
look
where
at
the
Henry
inclination
Cavill, for
comes
instance.
from. Yeah.
He's someone who's really passionate about something like The Witcher or like Warhammer 40K. Then, you know, feels camaraderie with the audience who also like it, instead of attacking them when they maybe have one criticism of the way he interprets something. Like,
It's like us with our live chat as opposed to the people who comment on the shorts.
yeah. Sure. I mean, yeah, and that's because they lack the context of what we're talking about and why. And that's why they snap like that. So I don't really care. And I'm used to how TikTok works, and it's worse than that.
Oh yeah, comment sections are where society goes to die most. Like, and to be fair, I find myself in plenty of comment sections, like popcorn in hand, reading people argue about the most useless of things. That is a guilty pleasure of my own. I'll fully admit that.
I do miss TikTok though. I want my TikTok.
Are you
back.
gonna start doing more stuff with the pop culture crisis TikTok? Because you were a TikTok lady.
Yeah. I mean, I have ideas about it. Probably live streaming. I don't know.
It's,
You don't do like the trend stuff?
Well, it's hard because it's both Dane and I scrolling on it.
Yeah.
So then our
But he
algorithm
doesn't do the
is different.
But you can find like generally what's trending probably for both of you, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd just be a way to get back into it if you were.
I get it. Like there's a certain part of it where like you have to detach yourself. Also because like whether it's as an actor, like if you're an actor, would you really want to care what people think of you? Because so many people will see the work. It's not like if the people like it, good, but you shouldn't let that affect your personality anyways. Like you shouldn't let who you are be swayed by the good or the bad. Like you should take the criticisms in stride and you should take the compliments in stride, but that's it.
This is what I wanted to bring up though. Like, how would this compare to the situation with Simone Biles, for instance, an Olympic athlete who ducks out of the competition? It kind of saves her status as an unmatched athlete by a technicality because she didn't compete again.
Was that because she couldn't take her Adderall? That was what I heard.
I don't remember exactly what it was. But she said, you know, it's just a general mental health thing that she had to step back to take care of herself. Well, and I don't know. I think that might be a different situation.
I think it's very clearly a different situation, in part because Jenna Ortega filmed the show and the show got made, right?
Yeah.
So with Simone Biles,
it got done.
Yeah, right. If they said this is 8 months of production, and she had to work really hard and it was exhausting. Okay, cool, getcha. Yep. You know, it's the demands of an industry that I'm not necessarily in. With Simone Biles, I get that she's been training her whole life, and especially probably leading up to the Olympics, it's more intense. But then to not compete, number one, it meant that you couldn't bring a gymnast to fill that role. It's too late. So that meant that your team suffered. Yeah. But also, it would be more like like Jenna Ortega being like, I just can't do it. And so they don't make the TV show. You know what I'm saying? I think that Simone Biles is her own person and she gets to say when she feels overworked. Woo. But you realize like why you were given a spot on Team USA, and that was for this one specific thing to compete at the Olympics.
And like I don't
No, good.
I don't condone the obviously abusive practices that a lot of other countries use against their Olympic athletes, like in Russia and China. You know, I've heard terrible things about that. But when you compare that to the American athlete ducking out due to mental health, it does make us look soft. And when you become an Olympic athlete, you're leaving your personal identity at the door to represent your nation. Yeah. And when you do that, like on the public stage, it's embarrassing for all of us.
For me, it's more like a missed opportunity for another athlete, right? They only come around 4 years. Gymnastics is highly competitive. It's also highly injury prone. Anyone else, there are
zero-sum game
who could have filled a spot, and I guess you didn't know until that day that you weren't going to be able to compete. But I think you kind of make an agreement with your country and with your teammates, especially, that you are going to try, because while gymnastics is an individual game, it's also scored as a team. And so she hurt a lot of people by deciding, and again, it's her choice to decide she can't compete. I just think maybe this is something that it's an opportunity that someone else could have had and would have tried, would have been willing to have the chance. I don't think that's really what's going on with Jenna Ortega being like, I worked crazy hard and then it was exhausting.
Then I got the job done. That's actually something to be proud of. But like with Simone Biles, I don't think that she should be put down for her decision necessarily, but she definitely shouldn't be praised for it. Like the fact that the immediate response was like
stunning and brave.
But stunning and brave, adulation, over the top. That she somehow even broke a glass ceiling for mental health advocacy even. That was insane. Like that response was totally unwarranted.
My initial take was she not only doesn't deserve to be praised, I do think it sets such a bad precedent that she should be not derided, but she should be held to account in the idea that, like you said, somebody else could have filled this spot. And if it does, and from what I heard, it's because where were the Olympics at? Was this Tokyo?
Tokyo. China.
If it was allowed to be played in America, you would have been able to take your Adderall because you were prescribed to it by a doctor. And overseas, they didn't allow anything like that because you couldn't bring it into the country.
I'm surprised that we didn't hear more of that then. Right? She can't be the only Olympic athlete in the entire world who takes Adderall and wasn't allowed to take it.
Yeah, but she's the biggest one there, so it's the biggest example of it. Also, it does remind me of Stephen Amell talking about when they were making Arrow, like he's working 18 hours a day. At the minimum, 18 hours a day. Only some of that is shooting. If you look at the shape of most of the actors on that show, they get into phenomenal shape. He was always in really good shape. He was a CrossFit dude. I think he was a CrossFit trainer before he became an actor. They get into progressively better shape because they have to be in such good shape for their fight scenes and just to look a certain way on camera. And he's doing 18 hours a day, 9 months out of the year for almost a decade. That's insane.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's this I don't even know that she's particularly famous, but a model who posted a selfie and she looks beautiful and whatever else, and someone commented, just a regular Instagram user, like, man, I wish I could look like this. And she responded, it's my job to look this way. Like I go to treatments, I get it's my job to make my face perfect. Like, don't put pressure on yourself, kind of thing.
And also, I'm not, but like what I'm criticizing of Simone Biles is not like, I don't want the brain dead take, like, you couldn't, like, of course I wouldn't be able to do the stuff, or like no one is negating how incredible those accomplishments were,
or that she was under a lot of pressure and she felt stressed.
Exactly.
Like, that's all real, and like I said, she has the agency to do what she wants. It's just a missed opportunity for a lot of people. Definitely the athlete who could have filled her spot.
I think you're
definitely
right.
For her teammates, but again, it's totally different than what's going on with Jenna Ortega, who is just saying, my industry had a lot of demands for me and it was hard and I made it through.
And I think you're right, man. I think you're right about Simone Biles. Like, it's not necessarily that she should be put down for it, but she should definitely not be given praise and adulation for making that choice.
Yeah.
Maybe that was kind of what I was thinking.
The response from the media was the real indictment of our culture.
And let's face it, she's part of an industry where she will be paid. I'm talking about Jenna Ortega now. She's part of an industry where she will be paid very handsomely for the extra work. You're not, like, she's not doing this for pennies. She's not doing this for minimum wage. She's doing this to make a good amount of money that will, I bet you, without even knowing this, is she the face of a hair care product line or a makeup brand? I bet you she is.
She's got all kinds of
I bet you she's the head of she's a main endorser of some big brand now. Like,
she's gonna be big. Like, she is already, but bigger.
Exactly. So like, hard work, that's fine, but like, you're being compensated for it. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.